I said, Mo, share a story that you've never shared before. And that's when he started getting nervous. Give it up for Mo Waja.
Fear is tangible. It's a rag pressed over your nose and mouth, suffocating you. Fear is a sound. It's the buzzing of 1,000 wasps in your ear. It's the rush of blood in your head and the thunder of your heart. Fear is a smell. It's a sour, acrid stench that stings the nostrils. 6 years ago, I sat in a park in Paris. It was my first time traveling alone, and I had gone to meet a friend who was on exchange. Over the last few days, we had shopped down the Champs-Élysées. We had visited Notre Dame. We'd even stopped in just the day before at this small bookshop called Shakespeare's, where the tall, dark shelves and the intoxicating, musty smell of old books made me sure that I would visit it again before my trip was done. That day was the 2010 FIFA World Cup Finals, and Spain was playing off against the Netherlands. So, of course, we decided to watch the match. They had set up a large screen in a park just off the Eiffel Tower, with the tower itself set as backdrop. The park was wide, with a slight valley dipping in the center and low hills rolling to either side. Fences had been erected along the border, with vendors set up in the center and all the paying parkgoers getting prime seats in front of the screen. We, being poor students, had decided to get the cheap seats. We had gone to the outskirts of the fences, taken out our picnic mats, cracked our drinks, spread our brie over our crackers. We were, as you can see, very, very cultured new Parisians. And we got ready to watch the match. Little did we know that soon that scene would change. Soon, it would be replaced with broken fences and a low haze of smoke hanging over what had been an afternoon of happy parkgoers and soccer fans. For those of you who remember the match, it was a tough one. As the hours dragged on, the sun sank lower in the sky and the shadows lengthened. The score remained squarely 0-0, and with it, the crowd grew uglier. Now, the happy peals of laughter were interspersed with angry shouts and cries every time a goal was blocked or missed. Now, the clinking and cheers of glasses was replaced with the shattering of glass, as bottles were broken against the fence or thrown over the fence. Not 6 feet away from us, some of the worst offenders fired small handheld fireworks out into the crowd over the fences, mixed with the screams of the people hit or nearly hit. The fences themselves groaned as bodies pressed up against them, rattling them, shaking them with more and more urgency each and every time a goal was missed. It should be no surprise to anyone that eventually the police were called. But when the gendarmes strode between us towards that source, not 6 feet away from us, my friend said something unexpected. Grab your things, get ready to run. They say when you're in times of greatest fear that the world slows down, that you see everything you've done, your entire life flashes before your eyes. You see everything that you could have done or you would have done or you hoped to have achieved. That was not my experience. For me, fear was present. Fear anchors you to the moment. It turns up the volume and the contrast on the world so that every sound is the dropping of a pin and every color is at its brightest. I've never seen the sunlight gleam so brightly off those fences. I've never seen uniforms as black as the gendarme. I've never seen grass quite so green. I have this flag that hangs up in my house, and it's a large Spanish flag. And often people ask me, oh, are you Spanish? Are you of Spanish heritage? The answer is no. That flag is a memory. It's a physical representation of what happened next, a memory that will never, ever fade. Fear changes the way you remember things. It's no longer a video reel of everything that's happened over the last week or day or month. Now it's a series of snapshots taken in picture-perfect quality, with each one standing out but lacking continuity. In that moment, I picked up on one thing that stood out from all the rest: the size of the knife strapped to one of the gendarme's sides. It looked like a short sword. It reminded me of Sting, carried by Bilbo and Frodo Baggins in The Lord of the Rings. It was massive, and it just struck me, coupled with, grab your things, get ready to run. I don't remember if there was a warning given. I don't remember when the switch was flipped and everything changed. I don't remember the sound the canisters made as they were fired into the crowd, or if they made any sound at all. I don't remember the sound the gas made as it left the canisters and made the air itself poisonous. All I know is that one moment we were standing there. We were scared but unsure of what was coming next. And then we were running and running. And now there's a press of bodies around you. There are hands at your back, and there's a faceless mass at your sides, and all you can think to do is run. It's an absolute biological imperative, changing your very perspective on the world. The people beside you are faceless. The hands at your back are pressing you forward, and you're so afraid that you will trip and fall and be trampled underneath the masses. There was screaming, but that became a background noise to the running and the pounding of footsteps as we ran as one being away from the gas, away from the gendarme. We were less than human in that moment. We were instinctual. We were a flock of birds or a herd of antelope running from a predator that was coming at our backs, driving us forward and forward and forward. And now your lungs are burning. Not the burning of aerobics, not the burning of exercise. It's paprika sprinkled over razor blades that you're trying to swallow and breathe in and take in. But you can't. Your throat is frozen. You try to cough, but you can't. You try to swallow, but you can't. You want to spit, but you can't. You want to vomit, you want to collapse, but you can't collapse. Because if you collapse, you'll be trampled by all those around you, all those faceless people, all that herd that is running away from the predator at your backs. You can't vomit because your throat is paralyzed. You can barely breathe, but you need to keep running. And now the burning is in your nose. Now the burning is in your eyes. You can barely see through the tears that are swimming. They're streaming down your cheeks, but you can't feel anything but that constant, continuous burn. Ahead of you, there's a low row of hedges, and you think this is it. You can't get over it. You can't go through it. Everyone's going to stop. Everyone's going to get crushed. There's no way out. Someone ahead of you jumps, tries to make it over the hedges. They clear a path, but they fall in the process, and the crowd, like one animal, surges toward them. There's no left, there's no right, there's just movement. You can feel the connection between you and everyone around you as you continue to move. But now you're on your knees. You haven't tripped, you haven't fallen. Your hand is wrapped in this guy's shirt and you're dragging him to his feet, and you're not alone. There are people to your left and people to your right, and your backs are breaking the tide of human bodies that are threatening to overwhelm you. You're dragging this random stranger who you've never met to your feet, and again, you're not alone. Far to your left, there are people pushing a wheelchair out of the haze of smoke that now barricades the rest of the scene that you just left. You realize that the only thing you've carried with you peripherally is that flag. You've left your food, you've left your drink, you left everything behind. But this wheelchair just made it out, at high risk to the person driving it. Far away from you to your right, you note peripherally that people are helping up family, they're helping up friends, they're helping up complete strangers and dragging them to their feet. Eventually, you make it through the hedge, and the crowd begins to disperse. You've lost your friends. You're hanging on to some random person, maybe the person you dragged up, maybe someone completely different. You can barely see through the haze of tears. My experience in Paris was not unique. In fact, looking at the world today, it's a pale reflection of the chaos and the terror that takes place on a daily basis. Yet, there is something that I learned from that day. There is something that I saw in the people who were running and fleeing, yet still took the time to help up those who could not help themselves. You see, we were lucky. We had someone with us who had worked for the Parisian government in the past and so had the benefit of experience. But there were many who were not so lucky. There are many who could have easily got trampled if it wasn't for the decency that existed in others. If there is not a goodness, then that day showed me that there is a decency, and that decency is shown in the compassion that exists within each and every one of us. I cannot claim conscious thought as we were running from the tear gas and running from the gendarme. I cannot claim that I made a decision when I ducked down with those others to help that guy to his feet. I can't claim that anyone else in that crowd had a conscious thought until we broke free. What I can say is that if we were driven by instinct, then it shows to me that there was a higher imperative still that drove us to help those around us, that drives people to help those around us. And my friends, if there is an imperative within us that drives us, even in the most desperate of times, to hold out a hand and help someone who's fallen back to their feet, then that, my friends, gives me hope. Thank you.